Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, July 11th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and start with roll call on the left.
Frank, no.
Jimmy Gagney.
John Mark.
Carla Stardens.
Lindsay Jocelyn.
Ryan Bray.
Mary Ann Chinati.
Katie O'Neill. Thank you. There is a quorum and all full members are present, so no alternate appointing this evening. Public hearings. Item A, 23-6TA, Town of Plainfield Zoning Regulations Amendment to Sections 1.2 Definitions, Section 8 Commercial Districts, Section 9 Industrial Districts, Section 12 Special Permits, and Section 13 pertaining to cannabis. Ryan, would you just want to give a brief summary of the regulations before I open it to the floor?
I am handing this over to the town planner.
Okay.
The regulations were proposed in response to the state's legalization of recreational marijuana, cannabis uses. The commission had formed a cannabis subcommittee, and that committee voted to send the current draft to the full commission for public hearing purposes. I want to bring to your attention that subsequent to forwarding to the full commission, the statute was again revised with an effective date of July 1. So as shown in red are the changes. It's nothing major. A couple of additions for definitions and as opposed to thereunder pursuant to said chapter, etc., etc. A couple of things I would like to bring to the Commission's attention. New are cannabis beverage manufacture facility permitted in the industrial zone district, and there are blanks for cannabis beverage manufacture, cannabis production facility, cannabis beverage manufacture, and also dispensary and manufacture in the commercial districts and production in industrial. Those blanks are there for the commission to discuss if it would so choose whether it wants to limit the number of those facilities in town.
Thank you. So this is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience who has a comment or question about these proposed regulations, now is your opportunity. Just step up to the microphone, state your name, and make your comment.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I bought what used to be back in the day Central Ford at 226, 230, and 238 Knowles Road. I have been working on them slow but sure, and want to bring those three buildings back to life. I've subdivided them.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you state your name?
I'm sorry, my name is Ron Lyman, L-Y-M-A-N,
Nice to meet you.
and I own the properties that I mentioned. And there has been, we've had interest from people in the cannabis industry to locate here. Now, that location, as you can appreciate, is certainly not an A location for retail, hence why the Central Ford, moved out after the business was sold and moved down to Lathrop Road, where it's, got better visibility right off the highway. And although it is zoned for commercial use, it unfortunately, well, let me just say this, that I've had the types of uses that were requested there is not a retail location. Not a location where any customers would be allowed. It would be a location, we had actually 3 different uses from that were all seemed interesting and potentially could go in the 3 buildings. One would be for production of manufacturing for gummies or cannabis-infused edibles. Another one would be for cannabis-infused drinks, and that would be a different building. And another one would be some sort of a lab where they wanted to actually test not only cannabis but other controlled substances that they would be able to test and so on, is what the request was. And my understanding is that you folks are I guess as far as the draft, as far as the edibles were proposed to be permitted in the commercial zone, so that covers that one. But the beverage manufacturer was not allowed in the commercial zone. And in talking to Mary Ann, the planner, she had mentioned she didn't think my site would be appropriate because of spot zoning to do a zone change. I would hope that if in fact for some reason one of the, if you could do one of the things that are mentioned, that it may be then also permitted to be able to do an additional manufacturing, of the cannabis-infused drinks at the same location. And the other real big one, and I can really appreciate why you did this, there was a regulation that it was 1,000 feet. I understand it's being proposed to be moved to 1,500 feet from a municipal building. Now, I can appreciate that. I mean, the last thing I want to do is, if my kids were going to school in Plainfield, to have next door to it a retail location selling pot. It sends the wrong message. So, and I'm assuming that was the goal, for you not to be able to, to have something you might deem undesirable next to elderly house, some sort of community center or school or something of that nature. But frankly, I love the fact that the police station is only about 500 square feet, 500 lineal feet away. And I think that the occupants would like that too. So I think that's a good idea, but I would hope you'd consider, certain municipal buildings might be exempt, i.e. the police department, because I don't think manufacturing, these items that I've mentioned at the location certainly is going to be offensive to the police department. We're talking about jobs and tax base and so on to these people. Although I think the typical people retailing would probably like to have a location in almost every town, retailing, but that's going to be a small shop and so on, 2 or 3, a couple thousand feet or what have you. But you're not going to see manufacturing of, edibles or cannabis-infused drinks. There's only, in other words, if something like that's placed in Plainfield, I would think that would probably be service the, maybe 50 miles in every direction or something like that. In other words, you're not going to have that, the type of facilities I'm proposing potentially for my location. You're not going to have, it's not like you're going to have multiple of those in every town. This town potentially could get that. Jobs, tax base, and so on. But so I would hope that you would certainly appreciate if you'd reconsider some way to handle the municipal issue, because if that's the case, I can't put anything there, because I'm probably only 500 lineal, as the bird crow flies from my place to the police station, as you folks. There's one property in between, so it's really close. So that's the biggest issue. And I've also, obviously, probably taken too much of your time sharing with you my concerns about the other ones. I would love to get those properties. I'm actually trying to make them nicer than they ever were when they were originally built. But in addition to making them look nice, we got to have occupants too to make sense out of it. So I appreciate your consideration and your help, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else in the audience with a comment or question on these draft regulations?
Kevin Cunningham, good evening. Do you have a copy of the updated regs that were just passed out with the new stuff that came in today? Copy of that. All due respect to Mr. Lyman and the request to help to bring a business into town, I am not in favor of the regulations. I think I mentioned this during the subcommittee meeting. My concern is actually the taxes. It's not the input that we're looking at for that type of a business. And again, it brings issues within a town that could put harm onto the residents as well as to the school system. So that's why I'm against. Just to give you an idea of what the taxes would be or could be, last month the state of Connecticut collected $15 million total off of sales of cannabis. Of that, if you calculate that out, 3% is really $450,000 for the entire state of Connecticut. I know not every single town is going to have it, but if you did somehow think about that process, 169 towns altogether, you're talking about $2,600. Then the other problem with that, with the way they have the taxes set up, is what you can utilize the tax monies for. So the residents cannot think that tax monies coming in like that are going to be utilized to upgrade the town hall or upgrade roadways around the town. It's only for around those particular areas within the town where this facility could be housed. And there's very strict and limited items what you can do with it. So it makes it difficult when someone says there's a lot of tax revenue. Oh, jobs, great, I can understand that. Use of facilities, understand that. But if you're thinking about that as a tax base, it is not what people are trying to promote to the public. This is very limited in the tax base. And I think that is a translation into what harm it could do for a community. So again, I'm just going to say that I'm against it at this point.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else question or comment on the application? Any comments or questions from board members? So we did have some unresolved issues, whether we wanted to limit the number of facilities, whether we wanted to allow for retail growth and manufacturing, or if we were looking to prohibit one and allow others. I don't think those issues have been resolved yet. And given public comment, I don't think public comment has assisted in any of that gauging of where the town would like to go. Mary Ann, do you think it'd be beneficial for the commission to have an additional workshop meeting to work out the additional language issues, continue the public hearing, and then present any other restrictions or prohibitions that so like a revision meeting?
That might be a good idea, yeah.
Okay. So board members, would you be willing to meet in about probably 2 weeks if we look at the calendar to come up with a mutually available night to review those items to make a more clear proposal where we either allow all three, prohibit all three, or prohibit one, allow two, etc. So those combinations. And then also give the, whether we want to limit the number. So if we are going to move forward with allowing, if we would be limiting the number. I don't believe there's a representative from the police department here, but could we get input from the police department as to their opinion of whether their facility should be allowed within that 1,500?
Actually, I did email the chief and the deputy chief today. Unfortunately, I have not heard back yet.
Okay, so if we could have that feedback for the special workshop meeting, that would be great. So looking at the calendar, is there any particular nights that would not work for board members? Because I can look at town calendar and send out an email to schedule that special meeting.
Thursdays are not good for me.
Okay, so no Thursdays.
After the revisions, we go back to another public hearing.
I'm going to ask you to continue this public hearing so that anything we do at the workshop would be presented to the public in a continuation of this public hearing.
Is there, yeah, because I think my curiosity still is, does the town, do the people of the town want it? Like, I asked that question. If the two sides that stood up today were the extreme ends of it, yes
Sure.
and then no.
Sure.
So I'm just curious about the rest of the public. If it's something the town wants or they don't want.
We still don't have any feedback from the other towns in the state, and we're going to see how things are going with them. So I don't know if we have any feedback on that.
I think the only one that's fully functional is one in Hartford and one in Montville, right? Well, Manacasville as well.
Dayville isn't open yet?
I don't
Or
believe so.
Danielson?
No, I think the application was approved, but
We
they're
don't
not.
have anything to go on as
Sure,
far as
understood.
experience.
Okay, so if we can do that outreach for the special meeting as well. And then I can certainly ask the Board of Selectmen if they'd be interested in having an informational meeting with the public. So if the board would like to schedule a public forum with the Board of Selectmen in order to allow for additional opportunity for the town to give feedback.
First week in August, does that help?
Yeah, I would say so. Because it'd be prior to the next public hearing.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's, first week is usually.
All right. So I will check the town calendar and reach out to you with, it'll either be a Tuesday or Wednesday night, I'm imagining. But I will get back to you with the date for that. So with that, I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing.
I'll make that motion to continue the public hearing.
I have a motion by June and a second by John. All in favor of continuing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, public hearing is continued. Moving on to item B, 23-7TA of Pasquale Computaro Jr. requesting a text amendment to section 13.56.5 of the zoning regulations to allow for pylon signs by special permit in the commercial zoning districts when a parcel is at least 5 acres in size and abuts I-395 by a minimum of 300 linear feet. Do we have someone to speak for the applicant?
Good evening. My name is Paul Sweet, 260 New Road, Moosup. I'm speaking representing the American tonight, Pasquale Computaro in particular. He proposed this text amendment for a reason, but the fact of the matter is they sat down and looked over the amendment, not the amendment, the text as they existed, and recognized that I want to be as straight with you as I can. He owns a piece of property along 395. And we have a couple of tenants that a couple of people interested in locating there. There's actually 3. There's one in particular that's a little bit bigger than, it's a little bit farther advanced in this whole thing. And I came down to speak to the zoning office about this text amendment proposal. And there's a couple of safeguards built in here and a couple of things I want to go on record about. One is nothing can really happen without a special permit. Special permit can't be given unless you have a public hearing. So it's hardly a controversial text amendment. The second thing is, even though we have a piece of property, or maybe more than one piece of property along 395, he's not looking to put a sign up. I know that the town would frown on the fact if he came in with an application just to put a sign up for something. You got to have a business there of some type to put a sign up. And he recognizes that. So we're not looking to put a sign on a piece of property with no business, okay? Again, it's something he wants to do, and I don't find it that controversial myself. I would encourage you to support the text amendment. I'll answer any questions I can answer. Anybody has any questions?
Did anyone else in the audience have a comment or question about this application? Okay. Was there any additional input from staff?
We reviewed my,
Yes.
so everything that I had to say is in the staff report.
All right, any other from the public? Anything further from board members? So I do have just a clarification question. It doesn't appear that there's a requirement that the sign be specifically for a business that is in Plainfield. So essentially it could become almost like rentable space, right? So if you apply for the permit for the signage on 395, there's nothing to restrict it to keep it to whatever commercial business might be abutting that property.
I hear what you're saying, Carl, but going right back, there would be no sign there unless there was a business there. The business would be in Plainfield, and the sign would represent that business. So without a business, we're not going to have a sign. Does that?
But this is a text amendment, which means it applies to everything. So not any particular application that may come forward in the future, but rather it's applicable to all properties that would meet this criteria.
Fit that criteria.
So when we're looking at this regulation, we have to look at it in the totality of what could happen, not any one particular purpose you may be representing tonight. Looking at the text amendment, it appears to be too broad and not restrictive enough. So you mentioned safeguards, but I didn't see that the particular safeguard you're referring to is actually addressed in the text amendment.
I hear what you're saying. Talking to downstairs, I left with an understanding we weren't trying to do anything more than getting a text amendment approved for a specific site that could have a business put on it that would want the sign. And the lawyers drafted up the text amendment so that it would fit. It had to be a certain amount of land. If you looked at the land along that area, I'm sure there's probably some other ones that fit. I don't know, but everything's got to stand on its own. A special permit is what it says, and at the end of the day, this panel, this board can reject it or approve it. So I can't speak to how broad it certainly looks simple to me, but if you have something in your experience that you think that this could be opening something bigger, we certainly are not thinking that way. And so I don't really know what to tell you. The owner, Pat, he wants a sign, so they worked because they were just outside of your current regulation. They were outside of this commercial area, not by much, and they could have done a couple of things. They could have purchased a piece of wetland north of them and made it part of that parcel, and they would have accomplished meeting your current regulation. But I think they went a different way because we don't want to get involved with wetland issues, you know, even though it would be just vacant land that's wet. So I don't know how to make it any plainer. I don't know if there's something you can recommend, or if there's something here that's really got you backed up on this. I kind of look at the whole commercial idea, and I look at, you know, Central Ford and Big Y, everybody, the signage down through there is pretty broad. And this is by no means going to be that kind of broad. You know, you're not going to have in South Carolina and have a different hotel being advertised every 500 feet going down the main road. You see, it's kind of a standalone piece of property. That's all we're looking for. We're not looking to open a door for everybody else. We're trying to represent just ourselves to you guys.
Thank you.
Just to remind members that just because this is what was proposed doesn't mean the commission can't modify it to include the requirement that the pylon sign be located on the same property as the business it advertises.
Yeah.
The slight modification of the language that can be achieved. So right now, the highway commercial zone says that you can advertise for a business within the highway commercial zone, anywhere within that particular zone. So Wendy's could apply for a pylon sign on United Alcantara property to get it closer to the highway. You could also put multiple signs for multiple businesses on one pylon sign near the highway, but it's limited to that 1,200 square foot radius around the exit. So if you extend that to all of the commercial zones, you're now opening a door for any business anywhere in town to locate on any other commercial property along 395, which isn't the intent. So we can modify the regulations to break out the highway commercial zone and regular commercial zones, so that regular commercial has to be on-site advertising only.
What's the difference in regulation from a pylon sign to a billboard?
So we don't allow for billboards. Billboards is for off-site advertising.
Only.
Yeah, that's what a billboard is. It's for off-site advertising. Otherwise, it's an on-site advertising sign.
Okay, because I know there's a billboard in town that advertises the medical clinic off of 12 there. So could they put a billboard on the property? Like, would a billboard be able to go there rather than a pylon sign?
So, pylon sign is used to describe a sign that it can be any height that the commission determines is adequate, up to 50 feet in height and 150 feet in area. So, I mean, whether you call it a billboard for an advertising sign.
They're about the same size,
Can
square
I,
footage wise.
can I go back on the record?
Hold on one moment.
Typical billboard is several hundred square feet.
Okay.
Uh,
Yes.
We're not interested in putting, I want this on the record, we have no intention of coming here looking for a digital sign or a billboard. That was something I wanted to put on the record, because I got an education about that too. So we have no intention of, you know, trying to come in here with something outside of what we're presenting to this, in this zone change, that's it.
Thank you. So the concern that I have is that, once again, this isn't about any one project or parcel. This is about the entire commercial zone of the town of Plainfield. So in that regard, I feel this is perhaps far too broad. So for the commission, and Ryan, please weigh in, if the commission wanted to ask staff to write a revision that it restricted further the commercial use of pylon signs, I believe we have that flexibility, so we could continue this public hearing, waiting for the staff revision of language for something that I think fits more what the commission may be considering. As written, I think it perhaps may be a little too broad. So does that sound reasonable to staff?
Yeah, I can make the revision run by the applicant and continue until next month.
Mr. Sweet?
No, I'm not having a contest here. What I'm trying to say is if something's too broad in this public hearing, and to avoid going to another public hearing or continue public hearing, is there something specific that you know about, because you guys deal with this all the time, that you could do right now? You guys, I don't know, you guys, the panel could do right now, if there's something that you want to restrict? Or is it just a matter of a few words? Is it a matter of measurement?
But I think we want to give it thought, because what we're doing is altering the regulations for all commercial zones. So I would not be in a position this evening to draft language right now that I think would fit my opinion. Up to the rest? Okay, thank you. I mean, it's ultimately what the board is comfortable with. I'm expressing my comfort level, and that certainly would not be it. So if board members agree with that, I would entertain a motion to continue so that additional language could be drafted and continue to next month. Yep.
I'll second that.
Okay. So I have a motion by Frank and a second by June. All in favor of continuing the public hearing? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Public hearing is continued. Moving on to item C. 23-9SP of Norman Tebow, requesting special permit for construction of 28 by 32 barn with a 14 by 28 lean-to on property located at 190 Black Hill Road, Assessor's Map 7, Block 108, Lot 79, RA 60 zoning district. And we have speaking for the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Norm Tebow. I'm a licensed professional engineer with Killingly Engineering Associates. I'm here representing Timothy and Melissa Plant this evening. We're here before you to request approval of a barn with a lean-to on an existing residential parcel. And this is in accordance with Section 7.1A of your regulations that says for any accessory structure greater than 900 square feet in area, a public hearing is required. So the barn that we are requesting is 1,068 square feet footprint. And as I said, it's an existing residential property. Let me grab this one. The property is kind of demarked by there is a ridge that goes from north to south on the property, and the original home was built basically this center portion where the home and the existing pool and garage are were kind of hogged out, and you've got the remnants of that ridge both on the north and the south side here. It's all a big ridge of gravel in there. So what they're proposing to do is to basically take this gravel face that exists right now, push it a little further to the south to build the proposed barn. And we're showing a gravel driveway off of the existing paved drive. This is a lot that was actually approved by subdivision in 1986. The setbacks that we're showing were based upon that original approval. Since Black Hill Road is to the south, we've defined the front yard setback of 50 feet on the Black Hill Road side, and then on to the east and the west, we're calling the side yard setbacks, and they were 15 feet at that time. The barn that we're proposing is going to be 16.3 feet off of the property line. It's nothing too complicated. This is actually going to be a Sigfridson barn. That's what it's going to look like. Pretty nice era-styled barn, very similar to the appearance of the home that's there already. The home is sort of a colonial-looking style, and the barn that they're proposing to put there is going to be very similar to what the existing residence looks like.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience with a comment or question about this application, now is your opportunity. Okay. Any comments or questions from board members? Comments or questions from staff? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by June, second by Lindsay to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Public hearing is closed. Moving on to the regular meeting. We have additions, corrections to the agenda. So items to add. Item E, 23-11 SP of the town of Plainfield. Item F, 23-13 SP of the town of Plainfield. And item G, 23-14 SP of Strategic Commercial Realty. That would be new business. Do I have a motion to add those items to the agenda? I have a motion by John. Second by Frank. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? Those items are added under new business E, F, and G. Citizens participation. This is the opportunity for the public to address the board on something that was not a public hearing. Okay, seeing none. Moving to our unfinished old business. Item A, 23-4S PL of Ernest Colello Jr. and 340 Prospect LLC requesting site plan review for construction of gas station, convenience store, drive-through fast food restaurant, and car wash on properties located at 338 and 340-342 Prospect Street and 14 Squaw Rock Road, Assessors Map 22, Block 88A, Lots 4, 5, and 24, C2 zoning district.
Thank you once again. For the record, Norm Tebow, Killingly Engineering Associates. I am here representing Ernest Colello Jr. at 340 Prospect Street, LLC. This is the location of the former Ra-Ra's Ice Cream. I think a lot of people are familiar with it. We've got the highway on and off ramps a little further north off of Route 14. What we are proposing is a commercial building that'll have a convenience store and gas station in it, a drive-through of some sort, most likely something like a coffee shop, eight dedicated filling stations, and a single-bay car wash on the eastern portion of the site. The plans have been reviewed rather extensively by Mr. Pauly. He sent me some comments back in June, which we went through, and we addressed each one of them individually. I can certainly go through those if you'd like, but in the essence of time, I think Ryan will verify that I've addressed all of his concerns. The one thing that Mr. Pauly has, well, not recommended, but the one remaining concern is that right in this spot over here, in this corner of the site, sort of like the southwestern corner of the site, we have requested a waiver from the 25-foot buffer, landscaping buffer in that area. It's kind of like an odd-shaped little corner over there, and because of the wetlands and the shape of the lot itself, and for maneuverability around the site, it was really difficult to be able to achieve that. So we've requested a reduction to 15 feet right in this one little corner here. There is a garage in that area. The residential home is toward the front of the site, which is quite distant from that. And I also might say that all of the traffic movement around the site is in a counterclockwise motion. So there's no impact, there's no headlight impact in any residence or anything in that area. Basically, as the cars come around, any headlight impact is going to be right toward the wetlands and the wooded area over here. We have addressed stormwater in two ways. Number one, we are dealing with the peak runoff that we want to limit from the site, and we're doing that by installing two different bays of subgrade stormwater control systems. I'm going to slide this a little bit. If you go to sheet 5 on the plans, you can see that we have a storm tech system in the northeastern portion of the site. We have a second one in the northwestern portion of the site. There's a high point that kind of runs from the back of the building and right about to where I'm showing you here. Any storm water from this area is going to sheet flow back toward the wetland areas. We have a water quality trench that will intercept that storm water prior to it discharging in that direction. The remainder of it, all the stormwater ultimately will tie into the state system, which discharges to the Moosup River. So in that regard, obviously stormwater quality was of great importance for us. So on the catch basins themselves, we do have some flow guard catch basin inserts. And what they do is, there are two different things that they do. Number one, they catch sediment. Secondly, there's like a charcoal filtering system in these things. And they also help to reduce and keep any kind of contaminants that you might have, like hydrocarbons and things of that nature. Both of the subgrade stormwater systems, you can see the shaded lines on these. And those are a pre-treatment system. It's called an isolator row. So that particular row of the stormwater system, what happens is that's where the stormwater comes first into it. There's sort of a filter fabric around the perimeter of those, and any kind of sediment or contaminants or floatables would become trapped in that prior to going to the other ones and ultimately to the state stormwater system. Now the state of Connecticut, Connecticut DOT has reviewed the plans. I have comments from them that we addressed. We do not have a final approval from them as of yet. However, their comments I thought were relatively minor. Their typical note that the proof of town approval must be submitted prior to the issuance of the encroachment permit. That doesn't mean they won't give us the actual permit until they need proof of your approval before they actually issue the permit for the driveway. Secondly, provide a sightline demonstration to Route 14. The 85% speeds in this area are 41 miles per hour. Therefore, sightlines of 455 feet are required. We have demonstrated sightlines of greater than 500 feet, so that works out very well. They noted that the drainage pipes under Route 14 are all 15-inch corrugated metal pipes. We had a couple of them labeled incorrectly, so we modified that. Finally, an analysis of the existing Route 14 drainage system needs to be provided that shows Route 14 will not be flooded during a 10-year storm. One of the advantages, I think, or one of the nice things about this is that each one of these sets of catch basins, we've got a set here and then a set about 80 feet away, and then another set about 100 feet away. Every one of those discharges just directly to the Moosup River. They're not all interconnected, so the drainage areas that go to these catch basins is very small. And on top of that, we are reducing the amount of runoff that comes from the site. So we have demonstrated that the state drainage system is more than capable of handling a 10-year storm. And then finally, the last comment they have, and once again, this goes when they're actually looking to perform the work, because we are tying into the state drainage system, a drainage concurrence will be required. So basically, that's some paperwork that needs to be filed with the state that says that we are going to be tying into your system, and there are some liabilities that are associated with that in case there are any detrimental impacts to that system, that the owners of the property would be responsible for addressing those issues. I believe you said, Carla, that you mentioned all three of these lots. As part of this, all three of these parcels will be combined to make it one contiguous parcel.
Just a question, where the vegetative buffer is reduced to 15, what's the distance of that?
The distance to the
length.
Oh, the length.
The length of the reduced buffer, yeah.
It is, it's about approximately 40 feet.
40 feet, okay.
Yep.
And there was a note here that there is a privacy fence there. What is the height and length of the privacy fence?
It goes around the perimeter of the whole site. Anything against the adjacent property. It's a 6-foot high stockade fence with landscaping as well.
Is that owned by this property, or is it?
No, it will. Well, it's a fence to be installed. It's not currently in place.
All right, got it. Any other comments or questions for the applicant from board members?
Without having a chance to really look through it, I'm just curious about the filters. Those flow card, do they get changed on a regular
Yep,
basis?
they do. They need. There is actually on the sheet. There's an inspection process that I listed there. How they should be maintained, how they should be inspected throughout the first year, and then adjusted accordingly based upon what happens that first year. And one of the things during a very significant storm event, like you've got these storm events lately where you've got 2 inches of rain in 20 minutes. These things actually have a bypass over the top, so what it does, it doesn't entrain any of the sediment or contaminants that are already captured in there. But what happens is that there's a little bit of a gap between that and the top of the basin, and the water can overflow, and that way it doesn't pond in the parking lots and things of that nature.
Since this obviously is a fueling facility,
Yes.
we're going to have a lot of deliveries of large quantities of fuel, and spills can happen.
Sure.
Is there any provision for having, like, basically, saving the whole ton of power?
Yeah. And then, we're getting the use permitted, obviously.
Yeah.
But, the actual design of the tanks and the systems and so forth, there are companies that specialize in that type of work.
Well, that's understood.
Yeah.
It's just, this is like, something really unexpected happens. It'd be nice to have something on the site, somebody knows how to basically throw a blanket over the catch basin.
Right.
And they're not expensive.
No, I agree. I agree.
And didn't you say earlier that a few of them discharge directly to the Moosup River?
Yeah, the catch basins that are in the road
Right.
do that. They discharge directly to the Moosup River from Route 14.
Okay.
So we are, nothing flows. We have basins and stormwater treatment system on site that ultimately connect to those basins.
So it would hit those first.
But they go into our systems prior to discharging to the state systems. There's no direct sheet flow or pipe discharges to their basins that aren't pre-treated on site.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other comments from staff regarding the application?
The only comment that I have is that we must act on the waiver request for the reduction of the landscape buffer.
So the request is that they reduce the 25-foot buffer requirement to 15 feet wide. He indicated that was approximately 40 feet in distance that it would be a reduced buffer, and that it will be supplemented with a privacy fence that would be 6 feet stockade fence. And you said that'd go around the entire area or just the area of the reduced buffer?
No, that, let me point that out for you.
Sure, thank you.
Yep, the fence actually begins here. It runs parallel to Route 14, goes along this whole property line, goes around the back here, all the way around the perimeter of the site. And the reason why we do it over here, I think most people realize that, you know, these types of facilities sometimes generate trash. People throw their cups down and things of that nature. So if we've got a cup there, at least we're going to be able to contain it on site if we've got that fence as a protective measure.
So in considering the request, those would be the, I guess, conditions of the waiver, is that there would be the stockade fence for the distance. So I would entertain a motion on the waiver request
Just no, we do have suggested conditions of approval.
for the, right, so waiver first, then application, right? Yes, and I will read those before we deliberate on that. All right, so I'll entertain a motion just on the waiver request.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
So is the reason that the buffer is almost taken down by half, that's because the property line?
Yeah, you got kind of a strange jog in the property line there. In order to make the site accessible for all vehicles around the perimeter, we have to have a certain width of pavement there. And, you know, for a bypass lane in the drive-through and for the allowance to actually get tractor trailers through there as well. So in order to have that travel path throughout the site, it is necessary to, you know, widen the pavement at that point a little bit, which as a result encroaches onto that little jog in the corner.
And I'm correct, there's not a tenant at this time, correct?
What?
There's not a tenant
No,
at this time.
there is not.
So if, once a tenant comes in, they may modify the site plan and they would have to come back to us for any site plan modifications.
But they would be able to.
Do this as presented, correct? Yep, if we approve that waiver request.
Right.
Do we know why this is 25? Like why?
It's regulation.
Do we know why?
Because it's up against, it's a commercial property that was a residential.
Residential.
So that's the required
Yeah,
buffering
that's
for
what I
that.
was thinking.
Mhm.
Yep. Any other comments or
I
questions?
just have a question about the traffic, the DOT report. What did they say about the bang, just the whole thing there?
They don't have
That's a
concern
drive.
with it. They don't consider this a major traffic generator.
Okay,
Much of the traffic associated with this type of business is drive-by traffic.
right,
People don't typically make a dedicated trip to come to something like this. This is more of an opportunistic
right,
type of business.
right.
I need gas, I'm going to pull in, I want to grab something to drink, something like that.
Did you want to offer clarification, Mr. Colella?
Mr. Colella, the fence is just on the east side of the property.
Correct.
That's close to any residential. The rest of the fence, I literally still own 4 acres behind it. So I just wanted to know that. It's not like it's somebody else's right there.
Thank you. All right, so any other discussion of the waiver request? Because we'll still discuss the application itself, but just the waiver request. Any other discussion on that?
And that's regarding the property line with Santiago?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that corner, yep.
That's the.
Okay, yeah. I would move to approve the waiver.
Okay,
I'll
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion by Frank to approve the waiver request. I have a second by June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
We don't need to have a public hearing to change it?
No. Nope, it's a site plan approval, so you can vote no or you can abstain. Okay, so we have 4 approval, 0 no, and 1 abstention. So the waiver request is approved. So moving on to the...
Thank you.
Part 1. Moving on to the site plan itself. So there were some suggested conditions of approval. Prior to receiving a zoning permit to begin construction, the following must be satisfied. Location approval through Zoning Board of Appeals for a gas station. DOT must give verbal approval to the zoning officer that they are satisfied with the plans. Mylars are to be filed with the town clerk. Should we add the on-site spill kits as a condition as well? Is that?
We don't actually have that.
No, because it's not a permanent structure, it's just a temporary, almost like an emergency kit.
Because this is not a special permit.
Gotcha, okay. All right, but we still would like to suggest that, even if we can't make it a condition. Would it be prudent to add as a condition that the reduced buffer does not exceed what was presented on the plan?
Well, that's a given.
Okay.
Shown on the plan, it has to be.
Okay, perfect. All right, so there are those 3 conditions for approval as read. So in making your motion, if you want to include those suggested conditions of approval, then just indicate in your motion that you'd like to add the conditions of approval as read. So any comments or questions on this application? Or any additional comments from staff? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on the application.
I'll make a motion to approve based on the conditions as read, location approval through Zoning Board of Appeals for a gas station. Oh, that's really, thank you.
No,
Okay.
you're welcome, as read.
As read.
So I have a motion by Lindsay,
I'll second
including conditions as read, second by June, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Application is approved with those conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving right along. Item B, 23-5 SPL of B&B Motorworks LLC, requesting site plan approval to expand an existing building, parking, and construct associated drainage on property located at 142 Norwich Road, Assessors Map 15, Block 72, Lot 3, Commercial 2 Zoning District.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Paul Terwilliger with Mrs. Lansbury, Mrs. Surgery Associates, representing the applicant this evening. The site question is located at 42 Norwich Road, which is Route 12, State Highway. It's an existing auto repair facility. If you kind of give this some orientation, I'm not sure if you know where the Allstate Insurance Building is. Victorian is across the street. It's next door to a storage, self-storage facility that was recently approved. And this kind of overlays the road of the existing conditions now. There's an existing 2,000 square foot building on the property with a daycare area surrounding it. If anybody's been by there, you can see that we kind of outgrown the facility. Their cars being stacked up. So the total area of the property is currently just over an acre. It was originally maybe a quarter of an acre surrounding the building. We bought some additional land from the surrounding property, added it to the back in order to pursue this expansion. What we're proposing is to put a 3,400 square foot steel building addition to the rear of the existing building. And some associated parking and a big driveway area attorney, we haven't heard back, the finals on that, but, verbally, he's all in agreement, to doing that. So we're proposing some additional pavement, the front part of the property here, we'll have a landscape, planting area between that and the highway. Some additional landscaping between the parking area and these corners around the front of the adjacent building. We'll have some angled parking spaces on the south boundary to accommodate customer cars as they set up. Is currently flowing to the east of the property, the rear of the building. We're proposing a water quality trench along the edge of that pavement that will kind of filter and run off as it goes down through the riprap swale and ultimately to the stone basin area before it goes across the stone overflow and ultimately to the wetlands area. It's been before the Wetlands Commission, and we approved it. One condition was that we install an oil absorbent plume along the beginning of the trench, so if we were oil or anything that would flow that way, it was going to be something to catch it before it goes into the trench. Frame discharge, proposed pipe on the pavement, discharge down to that basin area. The roof frame is on the north side of the building, grade to the ground, and the grade is
Thank you. Any questions from board members on this application? Or any additional comments from staff?
All comments have been addressed. I do have suggested conditions of approval.
Okay, so for the suggested conditions of approval, indicated prior to the issuance of zoning permit, the following conditions must be met. Deeded easement for parking on adjacent parcel must be recorded with the town clerk with a copy provided for the file. Mylars to be recorded. Any other items for discussion or questions? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on the application, and if you want to include the conditions of approval, just indicate as read.
I'll make that motion to approve it and the conditions of approval.
All right, I have a motion by June and a second by John. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Application is approved. Thank you. Item 23-6TA, Town of Plainfield Zoning Regulations Amendments. Since we continued that public hearing, we'll also continue the old business, so I'll entertain a motion to continue that.
I'll make it.
Motion by Don, second by June to continue. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, continued. Item D, 23-7TA of Pasquale. We had also continued this public hearing, so I would ask for a motion to continue the old business. I have a motion by Frank to continue.
Second.
Second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, continued. Item E, 23-9SP of Norman Tebow, requesting a special permit for construction of a 28 by 32 foot barn with a 14 by 28 foot lean-to on property located at 190 Black Hill Road, Assessors Map 7, Block 108, Lot 79, RA 60 zoning district. Any items for discussion on this application? I think it was pretty straightforward. All right, so hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on the application.
Make a motion to pass this.
All right, so I have a motion by June to approve. Second by Lindsay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Application is approved. Thank you. Moving on to new business. Item A, 23-6 SPL of BH Trailers and Plows, requesting site plan approval for a gravel parking area for storage of inventory on property located at 1 Center Parkway, Assessors Map 17, Block 11, Lot I-25, IP zoning district. All right, so it looks like this is waiting for inlands wetlands approval.
We do have some other big presentation.
Okay. So if the board wants to entertain a brief overview of the information, we can do so.
Yeah, if the commission wants a presentation at the next meeting, that's fine. It's at the preference of the commission.
Make a motion to go to the next meeting.
So motion to continue.
Motion to
I'll
continue.
second that.
Any other item for discussion? The motion is on the floor, but it can be. All right. All right, we have a motion to continue and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. We will see you at the next meeting. Thank you. All right, so continue.
Just I've never seen someone here present something and say, you do it later.
Yeah, no.
Like,
Okay, it's your time.
But thank you.
Pressure on our minds.
Moving on to item B, 23-10. I agree, Frank. 23-10 SP of American Industries requesting a special permit to modify a previously approved earth excavation on property located at 0 Norwich Road and Rood Road. This does require a public hearing.
I'll make a motion to schedule this for our August meeting.
All right, so we,
Second that.
I have a motion by John to schedule a public hearing for our regular meeting in August, a second by June. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Public hearing is scheduled. Item C, 23-2ZC of John Casey, Robinson and Cole LLP, requesting a map amendment to 0 Norwich Road to change the zone from RA60 to Industrial 1, Assessors Map 5, Block 3, Lot 1. This is a map amendment, so this also requires a public hearing.
So I can send this over here.
Yes,
I'll make a motion to do that.
at our next regular
At
schedule.
our next, in August.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion by June to schedule for our August meeting, second by Lindsay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, schedule public hearing in August. All right. Item D, 23-8TA of John Casey, Robinson and Cole LLP, requesting a text amendment to zoning regulations to add definition for auction facility, add auction facility to the list of special permit uses, and this also requires a public hearing.
Make a motion to schedule this for our next regular meeting.
Okay, so scheduled, I have a motion by John to schedule,
Second.
second by Frank. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right. Moving on to item E. Make sure I have the right one listed here. 23-11SP of the Town of Plainfield, requesting special permit to construct a 30 by 40 evidence building with a 14 by 40 lean-to on property located at 210 Norwich Road, Police Department, Assessors Map 15, Block 56, Lot 16, C1 zoning district. This would also require a public hearing.
I would make a motion to send this to public hearing in August.
Okay, so I have a motion to send this to public hearing in August. I have a second by Frank. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, public hearing in August. All right, item F. 23-13SP of Town of Plainfield, requesting special permit for upgrades to Lions Park and Town Hall parking on properties located at 0 Reservoir Street and 8 Community Ave, Assessors Map 2P, Block 30A, Lot 1, and Map 2P, and this would also require a public hearing.
Make a motion that we schedule the August regular meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by John to schedule for August. I have a second by Lindsay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, public hearing is scheduled for August. We're going to be busy in August, guys. All right, last item for new business is item G, 23-14SP of Strategic Commercial Realty, Inc., requesting special permit to continue with earth excavation at property located at 136 Black Hill Road, and this also requires a public hearing.
I'll make that motion to send to the public hearing next meeting.
Okay. Motion by June and a second by John. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Scheduled to public hearing. Review and act on the minutes of the June 13th meeting, and thank you to John for chairing in my absence.
You did great.
Thank you.
Unless anybody has any objections or mistakes, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for June 13th.
Okay, I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Yeah.
All right, I have a second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I will abstain since I was not present. So the meeting minutes are approved. Do we have any correspondence?
Nothing I'm aware of.
Okay, no correspondence. Report from zoning enforcement.
We had technical difficulties today, so I wasn't able to get to it.
Okay, so for the next meeting. Report from planning and development.
Other than my written report, an update on the Shepherd Hill pedestrian safety improvements. All the contract documents have been signed, the notice to proceed's been issued, and we have a pre-construction meeting on the gravel. We'll meet at the gravel parking lot at 1 o'clock on Monday.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any items under other, unless another board member does. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by June to adjourn, a second by John. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.